Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. So this is our new polity, new NCERT series, and we have started with polity. We are already done with class 9th polity book, and we have started class 10th, and now we are at the chapter 2nd, and we are already done with 2 parts of chapter 2nd, and this is the final part, the 3rd part and the final part. So in today's session, we will talk about the 2nd chapter, which is federalism, the left part of it, and we will also talk a little bit about the concepts that we are going to study in the next chapter. So before I start with today's session, can you just confirm if I'm audible and visible to all of you? Yes. Hi Prabhanu, good evening. Ananya, good evening. A Bansal, Aditya, yes, all of you. Good evening everyone. Can you confirm if I'm audible and visible to all of you? Can somebody confirm if I'm audible and visible to all of you? All right, great. Now for those of you, if this is your first lecture, let me tell you, we have our daily live session at 6 p.m. sharp from Monday to Friday, and we are covering NCERTs. Now in every session I've seen there is a particular comment which asks, should we read new NCERTs or old NCERTs? See, do not get trapped in this basic confusion whether you should read new NCERTs or old NCERTs. You study NCERT, whichever you can get your hands on. Just study that, because you have to build concepts from NCERTs. You obviously have to read advanced books as well, especially for subjects like polity and science, for subjects like economics. For geography, however, 6th to 12th NCERT is more than sufficient for your exam preparation. But for other subjects, you'll have to read the advanced books as well. But the caveat here is you will not be able to understand the advanced books much if you don't have the base, the strong foundation. And that's what we are trying to cover here. We are trying to build a strong foundation in these classes. So please just don't get trapped in this question of which NCERT should we be reading. Read whichever you get the chance to read, right? Or simply you can attend these classes. We anyway have our classes every day at 6 p.m. sharp. So you attend these classes and then you can revise again from these classes, and after that you can simply jump into the advanced books. So whatever chapter we have already covered, you can read that from advanced books and you'll be able to understand most of it. Okay. Yes, of course. Once we are done with the basics here, you will have to read Lakshmikant also. Okay, great. So we'll start with the chapter now. And one more question I think I got yesterday. Somebody tried to reach out to me and told me that, can I watch the videos later? See, it is always best that you watch the videos when they are live, because you can ask your questions in the live class itself. And very importantly, there is another trap which we get stuck into, and that is once we decide that we are going to see this lecture or read this particular chapter later, it gets piled on. The later never comes. And then you realize that you have a lot of backlog. And then you get overwhelmed, and then you feel like you will not be able to do it. So do not get trapped into that trap. Attend the classes live as it is, so that you can ask your questions and so that you can revise when we have a session, as and when we have our session. Okay, great. You did not receive the PDFs. All right, I'll look into it. You will get the PDFs in the Telegram channels. For those of you who want to get the PDFs, there will be a Telegram channel link below this video. After the session, you can just go through the description box and you can join the Telegram channel. On that Telegram channel, you'll find the PDFs also. Yeah, some chapters have been deleted, but that's what I'm trying to say. This is for your basic building block. Now, even if some chapters have been deleted, if I'm talking about federalism, let's say some points have been deleted, even then I'm going to cover everything that is to be covered from NCERT point of view. So it does not matter if some chapters have been deleted. At least cover the basics from here and then read the advanced books. And if you feel like, okay, this particular chapter you're not able to understand as much from the advanced book and there is a chapter related to that in old NCERT, then you can go for selective reading maybe. That's it. Okay? Yes. So like I said, you can go for selective reading. Maybe there is not a lot of difference in these books. Some chapters may have been tweaked a little, but I will be covering whatever is required in the classroom. So relax. Your foundation is going to be strong. So relax. Okay. So in the last session, I gave you a question for answer writing, and I do have a complaint, and that is, why are you not writing the answers in the comment section? There were only 2 students. Let me just see. I think there were only 2 students who wrote the answer. I gave you a question. One second. The question was, India is described as federal system with a unitary bias. Examine. This was your question and you had to write the answers, and there were only 2 students who had written the answer. Why is that so? What about other students? Okay. I think one was Ananya, another was Adi. So only 2 of you have written the answer. Do not do that. Whenever I give you a homework, please complete that homework in that same day itself. So let's say we have to tackle this question. Let's go to this question first. It is there at the end, I guess. And since there are some new students and this chapter is particularly important, today I will sum this chapter up also for you. We were supposed to read the 3rd tier government. That is the only part that is left, but I'll sum it up everything for you. All right, so this was the question that I gave you for homework. India is described as a federal system with a unitary bias. Examine. And I asked you to write the framework of it and you did not do that. So in this question, if you look at it, what is the keyword? What is the main word that you have been asked? Okay, let me take some of your questions. Ma'am, PDFs. Beta, PDFs are not being uploaded regularly because I'll tell you, because see, this chapter itself is done in 3 parts, right? So after we are done with the entire, all the parts, after we are done with the entire chapter, then I will give you a combined PDF. That is why they were not updated regularly, I suppose. Notes, you can see these PDFs. I don't think there is a need to make notes from NCERTs. You just need to understand everything. You need to build the concepts. That's it. That is what is required. Prabhanu, yes, I forgot your name. Yes, I saw your answer too. All right, let's look at this question and then I'll take your questions at the end of the session, right? So this question talks about the fact that India is a federal system, but there is a unitary bias. Now, because in this question, there are keywords. What are the keywords? For example, here they have specially mentioned that India is a federal system, right? So you'll have to explain what is federalism, right? Whenever you find keywords in the question, now we are starting the chapter, okay? So pay attention. Whenever we are trying to write an answer for mains, always try to find the keywords. For example, here the keyword is federal system, so federalism. And if you don't understand how to start a question, you can always start by defining the keyword. That's something you can do. And in a question, there can be 2 or 3 keywords, then you have to find which is the main question stem. What is the main thing that they're talking about? Then try to define that. So in case you're a very beginner student or you're advanced student, but in a particular question, you cannot figure out how to start the introduction. Because if you actually sit down to write the answers, you'll realize it's really difficult to start the answer. The introduction part is difficult. If you don't understand anything else, for now, you can simply define what is given in the question. So because it is saying that India is a federal system with a unitary bias, I'll start by defining federalism. That's something I can do. So in the introduction, I can define federalism. And then I can simply say, I will not explain it here, but I'll simply say that India has some federal features, but at the same time, center also gives special power or significant power to the center, because that will show unitary bias. So my introduction came directly from the question. I did not have to think a lot. And this is a very wholesome sort of introduction. You'll get marks for this. So in the introduction, what I'll do, first, define the keyword, and then see what exactly have they asked about. So they have said that there is federation, but there is also unitary bias. So I can simply use this line in another way, that India has federal features, but at the same time, it also has, the constitution has also given significant power or special powers to the center. Now this sentence itself shows this federal system with unitary bias. Got it? Next will be body. What would you write in the body? Now comes the body. We are sorted with the introduction part. What would you write in the body? Yes, I will take your questions in a while, beta. What would you write in the body? Because the question talks about federal system and unitary bias, of course, you're going to talk about those features that show that India is a federal system. So in the body, you will write the federal features of India, right? And then you will also write some instances where it becomes unitary. And we have already seen all of that. I think in the last or maybe the previous lecture, I asked you to write the federal and unitary features of India, and there were a lot of students who have written that. So you can pick from there. So you will write the federal features of India, and then wherever it becomes unitary. So you will show that in these particular instances, center becomes much stronger and it shows unitary tilt or unitary bias. Then in the conclusion, what would you write? In the conclusion, again, Because the question talks about federal system, and I told you conclusion has to revolve around the question itself. Your introduction and conclusion should reflect your question. That becomes a complete circle and you'll get good marks with that. Because you're making the work of examiner easier. Because if I'm checking your answers and if I read your introduction, it was very well written, body was written very well, but by the time you started writing conclusion, now I don't have any idea about what the question was. So that becomes difficult. I have to go back and read the question and then I have to see whether it is coherent or not. So your main purpose should be how I can make the work or the life of the person checking my paper easier. So if your introduction and your conclusion come from the question itself or it is around the question itself, it becomes easier for the person who's checking your answer. So he will be giving you good marks. So in the conclusion, what would you write? Of course, you'll write something about federalism, but at the same time, we know for a fact that federalism is important, but national unity is also important. So you can write something like, we need to strike a balance between federalism and national unity, and which is why we have unitary bias. Something like that, right? Okay, now I'll take some of your questions. How India is a federal system? Beta, you have to watch previous videos. If you haven't watched the last 2 videos, you will not be able to understand this. If you're new in this series, you have written chapter 1 and 2 in 1 or 2. Okay, if you're new in the series, first of all, it's very important that you watch all the videos because otherwise you will not understand. So for example, in this previous lecture, in the last 2 lectures that we had, we talked about what exactly federalism is, why is it important, and then what are the federal features of Indian Constitution, what are the unitary features of Indian Constitution. We have read all of that, right? So it's important to study all the lectures. Otherwise, there will be gaps, of course. Now let's start the session. Now we are done with the question. Now we'll start with the session. So in today's session specifically, we had to talk about decentralization in India, the need for local government. Now this was a question I asked you yesterday also, and all of you have answered it correctly. What was the need for local self-government or local government? Yes, tell me, what was the need for local government? Why was local government required? There was a government at the center, there was a government at the state level. Then why was there a need for local government? Cooperative federalism, right? Okay. What is cooperative federalism? Yes, you can write that also in the answer. That whether right answer. Okay. See, you tell me if you are checking a paper and there are big paragraphs that are written, or there are points and then maybe 2-3 lines that are there to explain those subheadings or subpoints. Which one would you prefer to check? This is a question I'm going to ask you. This is a question that is for you. I told you that let's say you have to check an answer and one of the students has written big paragraphs. The other one wrote a heading, a subheading, and then wrote 2-3 lines about it. Which one would you prefer to check? Of course, the one with the heading and 2-3 lines about it. And what did I tell you? The main purpose of answer writing is making the life of person checking your paper easier. That is it. If you keep this one thing in your head, in your mind, you'll be able to write good answers. Now, I can write very big paragraphs, but in that sometimes essence is lost. Sometimes there are too many words, and for me to figure out what actually you're trying to say or what according to you are important words, that gets lost. But here, if I have written a subheading and then I have explained that in 2 lines, it becomes very easy. It looks neat, it looks presentable, and it is also very easy for me to understand what you're trying to say. Got it? Yes. Anil, I do read the messages. Government are essential to maintain law and order, protect individual rights. No, but that was not my question. My question is, we already have governments at the center level, union government, and the state level. Then why do we need local government? Why do we? Yes, very good, Prabhanu. Yes, of course, because they actually understand what are the problems, what problems are there at the local level. That is why local government is required, because maybe the government at the center or the state level, which is handling every issue, will not be able to understand the issue a particular village has, right? Or particular city has. They may not be able to understand that. So local government is required because large states are very heterogeneous, very diverse, and there are needs of specific villages or specific areas that may not be met. So we require local government. Very good. To ensure efficient administration and greater public participation. Great. See, you can see for yourself, all those people who are attending the lectures regularly, your answers have improved significantly. Maximum population live in rural areas. So you're trying to say if maximum population was not in rural areas, if there were only few people in rural areas, then we did not need this. Whether there are a lot of people in rural areas or less people in rural areas, they need a government for their administration, a government that understands what they require, right? And this is called decentralization. So centralization is when all the power is centered in the hands of few. That a few people at center, maybe at union government at center or in the state, they have the power. Decentralization is now I'm distributing the power. That is decentralization. So local people, of course, they will understand local problems much better. Then they will use the public money for the actual purpose that is required, right? There will be faster decision making. Why? Because they understand their problems better. They know what is required to solve those problems. And similarly, this also strengthens democracy, because democracy, the main core center of democracy is federalism, power sharing. If everybody feels respected, everybody has power, democracy strengthens, and that's what we studied in the previous lecture also. So because of all these reasons, local self-government was required. Okay, so what was the need for local self-government? Large states are themselves very diverse and heterogeneous, so power must also be shared within the states, and this led to local government. Is it clear to everyone? Now, there was 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, and most of you already know about this because in yesterday's session, I think one of you did say that for local self-government, we have 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, my question to you is, with 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, which government was institutionalized? With 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, which government was 74th Constitutional Amendment Act for? And which government was 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act for? Yes. Very good. Yes, right? You already know. So here we will be talking about two governments. One is the Gram Panchayat, the Panchayati Raj, and the other will be municipalities. So we'll be talking about Panchayati Raj and municipalities through 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. All right. Now, this was done in 1992. But my question to you is, were these two sort of governments were these two governments not there before 1992? I don't know, somebody just keeps spamming the comment section. Were these two governments were not there before 1992? Because 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act came in 1992. What about the scenario before it? Were they not there? Were panchayats and municipalities did not exist? Did panchayat and municipalities exist before this or not? Yes or no? Yes, so panchayats and municipalities existed even before 1992, but they were largely regulated by state governments. Please hold on to your questions. I'll answer your questions in a while. Okay, let's study a little bit. So they were largely governed by state government. The elections were not held regularly. They had very few powers, they had very few revenue, very little revenue, and because of all of that, they were not very effective. So it's not like before 1992, the Panchayati Raj or panchayats and municipalities did not exist. They existed, but they were largely regulated by the state governments itself, right? So in the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, some major provisions were brought about. First, elections, regular elections became mandatory. Like I told you before this, regular elections did not happen. After this, they were made mandatory. Then there were reservation for SCs, STs and OBCs, and 1/3 seats were also reserved for women. There was state election commission established, and it was said that states must share powers and revenue both with local bodies, because there is no point of making a government if you're not giving it power and revenue. Because if there is no revenue, they won't be able to make the positive changes that they were made for, right? Yes, very good, Prabhanu. See, I'm very happy with the comment section, the live chat section. Whenever I see this, there are some students who are coming in every session, and your answers are always something that I like to read. You always give good answers, right answers. Even if they are not right, you actually try to give good answers, and that makes class really interactive. Okay. So this was done in the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now we will talk about Panchayati Raj and municipalities, although it is not given in detail in NCERT. So we will stick to what is given in NCERT. Okay. First is Panchayati Raj or Gram Panchayat. Now in Gram Panchayat, there is ward members which are called Panch, and the head of this would be Sarpanch. You must have heard about it. Sarpanch is the head, which is the president. In Gram Panchayat, these are directly elected by villagers. Now this is important. These are directly elected by villagers. Similarly, we have Gram Sabha. Now Gram Sabha is not the part of this government. Gram Sabha means that all the registered voters of the village will be a part of Gram Sabha. Right? Okay, please hold on to your questions. So as I told you, in case of Gram Panchayat, the village level government, in the case of Gram Panchayat or village level government, there are ward members called Panch. Then there is president called Sarpanch, and these are directly elected by the villagers. That is the most important part. Then is Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha includes all the registered voters. So all the registered voters of the village are a part of Gram Sabha. It's like a community sort of a thing. Then there is Panchayat Samiti or block or mandal. At the block level or mandal level, they are formed by grouping different Gram Panchayats, and members are elected by Panchayat representatives. So you can see here also members are elected, here also members are elected. So you are asked in the examination, in Gram Panchayat, are the members elected? In Panchayat Samiti, are the members elected? And you have to answer accordingly. Then there is district level. So this was village level, right? This is block level. And then the third tier government in the Gram Panchayat or the Panchayati Raj or the village level government, there is a third level government which is district level, Zilla Parishad. District level, Zilla Parishad. So at the village level we have Gram Panchayat, at the block level we have Panchayat Samiti, and at the district level local government we have Zilla Parishad, right? Are the representatives in Zilla Parishad elected or not? Now that's my question for you. Regular voters of age 18 and above, this is called universal adult franchise. We have accepted it. Yes. So here also at the district level local government also they are elected. So you can see when we talk about Panchayati Raj, there are three levels. At the village level we have Gram Panchayat. This is at village level. Then at block level or mandal level we have Panchayat Samiti. Panchayat Samiti. And at district level we have Zilla Parishad, right? So these are three tier government when we talk about Panchayati Raj at the local level. Now what is Gram Sabha? Gram Sabha is not a part of this three tier government. Gram Sabha means that all the registered voters are a part of Gram Sabha. There is no election here. Simply all the registered voters are a part of Gram Sabha. Is it clear to everyone? Yes, very good. They were elected. Then we will talk about urban local government. Yes. See, that is not given here. Like I told you, this is the very basic, this is a very basic sort of infrastructure, very basic framework that is given in the NCERT. As and when we progress in further chapters, you will find these things in detail also. There are other points here also which I should be mentioning, but because this is not there in your 10th class NCERT, I'm not mentioning it here. Otherwise, it will become unnecessary bulky, right? So for now, just remember this. There is three tier. Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad, right? Now we have urban local government. In urban, so here is Zilla Parishad, urban local government. Urban local government, as the name suggests, it is set up in the urban areas, right? So here we will talk about municipalities. They are established in towns, they are established for towns, and here the political head is called municipal chairperson, right? Here the head is called municipal chairperson, and municipality is for towns. Municipal corporation is for large cities. So in urban local government, you will find for towns which are not so large, and then for large cities. For towns we have municipalities, municipality, and for large city we have municipal corporation. Municipal corporation, right? So, okay. So what will we remember? At the village level, at the Gram Panchayat level, at the village level, at the rural level, rural local government level, we have three tier government. What were the three tier government? First was First was at the village level, that is Gram Panchayat. Then at the Mandal level or block level is Panchayat Samiti. Then at district level is Zilla Parishad. Apart from this three-tier government, we also have something called Gram Sabha, which means all the voters, registered voters of that village will be a part of Gram Sabha. These three-tier governments are elected. Gram Sabha, there is no elections here. There is simply, it means that all the registered voters are a part of Gram Sabha. That's it. Then for urban local government, we have for towns, which are small towns. So for that we have municipality, and for large cities we have municipal corporation. Is it clear to everyone? Yes. Is it clear to everyone? Great. Now there are questions. Questions are, okay, fine. We have made 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now we have local government, rural government and urban local government. But are there some challenges? You tell me, are there some challenges or problems? Are there some challenges or problems? Yes, of course there are challenges. Even now you will see that even though elections are bound to happen, these Gram Sabha, they don't meet often to discuss things. So there are no regular meetings. Yes, of course there are problems. There are no regular meetings. Then many states don't transfer enough powers. They're supposed to transfer, but they don't transfer enough powers. And because there are no enough powers, there are not enough revenue also. And without financial help, what would they do? Because if you want to improve anything, any infrastructure, if you want to make any changes in the village, you would require money, or in the town, you would require money. So many times the financial resources are also not enough for them, right? So we have established local self-government, but we cannot see its full-fledged effect as of now. All right, great. In Gram Sabha, because there are all voters, right? All the registered voters are a part of Gram Sabha. So those meet regularly to discuss different ideas. So it's like a sabha. You think about it like everybody just meets and discusses what are the problems we are still facing, what are the problems we need to work on. So that is the function. Okay, yes, of course, in the grassroots level, the investment is very less. So that's all that is given here in this chapter. There is a case study for Brazil that is given, that is not very important for us. Now, in this chapter, we talked about federation. What is federalism? We talked about why it is important, right? We'll just quickly recap for those of you who haven't attended the previous sessions, so that you know that you have to attend the previous sessions. So in this chapter, we talked about federalism. Federalism is power sharing. And the moment I ask you a question, you should be writing answers also. Okay? But I think I missed your statement. I don't know what is the first half of your sentence from the heart. Okay, so federalism means power sharing. And in India, if we talk about when the constitution was drafted and adopted, we had two levels of the government. At center, we had union government. At state, we have provincial government or state governments. At that time, we did not have local self-government. So initially, we shared power between center and state. Then what is the purpose of federalism? First purpose, it ensures that there is a feeling of brotherhood and unity. So it ensures unity because everybody is sharing power. Then it also accommodates regional diversity. What does that mean? We know for a fact that in this country there is heterogeneous population. There is so much diversity. And if everybody feels included, everybody feels like they have the power, then we are respecting the diversity, right? Then if we want federalism to succeed, we have to make sure that the different governments or the parties involved, they agree to share power, right? For example, we just made local self-government and we had 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, but in many areas, the power and revenue is still not shared enough. So if they're not ready to share, it's not going to be a success. So similarly, for federalism to succeed, different governments must agree to share power, and they actually should trust each other that nobody is going to take advantage. They will respect constitutional boundaries. Then we talked about what is the federal system and unitary system. In federal system, power is shared between center and state. Here, states have constitutional powers. What does that mean? Federal system means power is shared, right? Power is shared. That means both state and center gets the power from constitution. So one government cannot be all powerful in federal system, right? But in unitary system, most powers are there with the central government, and the central government gives directives to the state government also, because central government is all powerful. Then if we talk about, there were some examples given. If we talk about India, then in India we have federalism or federation with unitary tilt. That we will see in a while. But before that, we also talked about two types of federation. What are the two types of federation? One is coming together federation, other is holding together federation. In coming together federation, we saw that there are different independent units that came together to form a country, right? Now they all have equal power. So here they have, because they have equal power, they can also secede. They can also just move away or drift apart. Here, states are also strong. But in this case, holding together federation, there was already a country and we divided power for administration, for the purpose of administration, right? So we shared power here. Now, because they were not independent units initially, they do not have the right to move away or drift apart or secede. So here, center is stronger as compared to states. Next, we saw some features, general features of federalism. Then we saw in India, as I told you, is federation with unitary tilt, right? So there are some federal features in our constitution and there are some unitary features in our constitution. I hope there are no questions. Villages, registered member. No beta, in Gram Sabha there are voters, registered voters, not just villagers. Okay. Yes, for administrative convenience. Very good, Ashish. We divided power for administrative convenience. We have already seen all of this, right? We are just quickly recapping everything. Then the federal features of the constitution. First is dual polity, mainly basic features here that we studied. The main features that we studied here which show the federal feature of the constitution are that we share powers, right? There is a written constitution. That means what power which government is going to have is written clearly. So nobody can encroach over somebody else's power. So it is clearly mentioned which government is going to have how much power. How can that be changed? Everything is written. So it becomes the part of federal feature. Similarly, constitution is supreme. Central government is not supreme, constitution is supreme, and constitution gives power to both center and state. Then rigid constitution, meaning if there is any provision that has to be changed in which is going to affect the states also. So for that we are going to need special majority along with ratification by states. So it is not easy to change those provisions and you have to ask states if they are okay with it. You have to consult states also, and at least more than 50% states should say yes. So it is a difficult process to change the constitution or amend the constitution. So this is the rigidity of our constitution, and this shows federal feature because it is not very easy to take their powers, or it is not very easy to make any provision that is going to affect states also. They have their individuality. Next, independent judiciary. Why? Because if at any given point of time there is a problem between center and state, then judiciary will interfere and judiciary will make sure that nobody encroaches over anybody else's power. So we have already studied, we have studied dual polity in detail, we have studied division of power, we have studied all these in yesterday's lecture. If you haven't seen that, please go ahead and watch it first, because these are very important. There are direct questions asked in the examination where they say which of the following are the federal features of the constitution, or similarly which of the following are the unitary features of the constitution, right? So you should know that these are the federal features and these are the unitary features, and at the same time you should also know why these are the federal features and these are the unitary features, because otherwise if you just mug it up and you write and you go in the examination, you will mark it wrong. So for example, emergency provision. I'm not discussing everything because we have already discussed everything. For example, emergency provision. Now we know that during emergency, center becomes stronger. So this shows the unitary feature. Or when we talk about, let's say, integrated judiciary. So we saw independent judiciary is a part of federal feature, right? Because judiciary is independent and at any point there is a dispute between center and state. So judiciary will come in, interfere, meddle, and it will ensure that each government is going to have the powers that it's given in the constitution. Nobody encroaches over anyone else's power. But when we talk about integrated judiciary is Supreme Court is at the top. It is the apex court. Then we have High Court and lower courts. Now, do they all have same power? No, they don't have same power. And power sharing is a concept of federal feature. But here, because Supreme Court has most of the power, or it is the apex court and every other court has to listen to Supreme Court. So this is the unitary feature, right? Because there is no power sharing happening on equal level. So this is the unitary feature. Then we also saw that there are some residual powers with the center, meaning We know that there are center list, there is a union list, there is a state list. The subjects in the union list will be legislated by the central government or union government, and the subjects in the state list will be legislated by the state government. Then we have a concurrent list where there are some subjects given and both center and state can make laws on that. And then there are some subjects which are not included in any of these lists because they are relatively very new. So they are not included in any of these lists, and for all those subjects, so they are residuary subjects, right? They are left behind. So for all those subjects, the power will be given to center. So because here center gets supremacy, this is also a unitary feature of the Indian Constitution. Yes. Okay, let's move on. I'm not going to discuss every point here because we have already discussed in the last two lectures. Then we know that there are unequal power among states. I also told you that Article 371 you have to remember because this specially talks about the special power given to states. Then we also saw there were some schedules in which special powers or provisions for the Northeast states, MAT. What does it say? Yesterday we saw what were the four Northeast states that we talked about, and there we have special provisions. So what were these four states? Name them. Then we saw that, yes, for any provision which is the federal provision, meaning if there is going to be a change in the constitution which is going to affect the states, because that is a federal provision, in that case, it is not easy to change or bring that provision. For that case, this should be passed by both the houses of the parliament by 2/3 majority, which itself is difficult. And apart from that, it should be ratified by at least half of the state legislatures. So this makes constitution rigid in some parts wherever federal provisions are to be amended or changed. Now, you are just giving me the acronym ATMM, okay, but what were these? Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, Mizoram. Yes, thank you so much, Anil. I really hope that you watch all the lectures. I'm telling you, these are going to be extremely helpful for all of you, whether you are beginner or advanced students. Okay, then we saw about role of judiciary also. In that we saw that judiciary's main function is to protect the constitutional provision, to solve center-state issues, right? Next, we saw that how it, there was some example about how federalism is practiced. You can see that in the previous lecture. And at the last part, we saw decentralization, that is what is the need for local government that we have studied today itself. Then we saw 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act and what were the major provisions that were brought about in this act. Then we saw rural local government and urban local government, right? And that ends this chapter with the challenges. What are the challenges? Despite these constitutional reforms, there are some challenges, as we have already discussed, that Gram Sabha do not often meet regularly, or many states do not transfer power or revenue enough to make any changes. They are still inadequate, and full local self-government has not yet been achieved or realized, even though Constitutional Amendment Act says it should be. Okay, this question I think we did in yesterday's session. These questions we are done with yesterday's session itself. The next chapter that we will study, we still have 5 minutes. The next chapter that we will study is gender, religion and caste. Now in this chapter, there is a concept, there are a few concepts that we have to study, and I've picked one concept just to get a little idea about in today's session, and we will of course start this chapter from the beginning tomorrow. And that idea is secularism. We say India is a secular state, right? Because here we will be talking about religion. In this chapter we will be also talking about gender-based issues. So for example, we'll talk about patriarchy because it is a gender-based system, right? We will talk about feminism or feminists, who are feminists. So we will talk about different things based on gender, religion and caste. The first thing that we need to talk about is secular. We say that India is a secular state. What does secularism mean? Thank you so much. Karunashri. Okay, Karunashri. Yes, thank you so much, Vita. Yes, please tell me. Secular. What do you mean by secular? Okay, congratulations, Rani. I really hope that you get through the exam as soon as possible. I know all of you work really hard for the examination, and this process, this journey itself is exhausting, exhilarating, but quite exhausting. So I really hope that all the students that are preparing for this examination get through as soon as possible. Secularism means that there will be no official religion. Very good. Yes, that means that there will be no official religion of the state. Okay. There would not be any interference in state of matter of religion. Okay, but I have a question for you. You said there will not be any interference in religion. But in India, we have had cases of interference by the state in the religion, in the matters of religion. For example, triple talaq. Right? There have been other cases also. So how can you say that there will not be any interference whatsoever? See, these concepts look so simple, but actually you have to really understand what's going on. No state religion. Yes. See, a basic definition of secularism is there will not be any state religion. There will not be any official state religion. And India does not have that. But apart from that, secularism can be of two types, positive and negative secularism. What is the basic difference? We'll of course take this up again in tomorrow's session, but let's just quickly go through it right now. So what is the basic difference between positive and negative secularism? Positive secularism means that the state will give equal respect to all the religions and it will maintain a principled distance. Negative secularism means that state will ensure that there is strict separation between state and the religion. That state will not interfere in the religion whatsoever. See, I said something. I said in negative, the state will not interfere whatsoever and the state will maintain strict separation, distance from the religion. But in positive, we say that the state is going to give equal respect to every religion, but it is going to maintain principled distance, not strict separation, principled distance. And this is your homework. You have to find out what principled distance in secularism means. This is something that maybe you can Google, you can read from books, read about it. In tomorrow's session, when we talk about secularism, not at the beginning, but when we talk about secularism, I will explain this concept. But first, I'll ask you. You can also write this down in the comment section below. After the class is done, the comment sections are open. There you can write this as well. So, India is positive secularism. India has positive secularism and it follows the principle of principled distance. You have to tell me in the comment section, what does it mean? What is the meaning of principled distance? Right. State will interfere if required, but then why are we calling it principled distance? That's my question. Do you have any other question from this lecture? If you have any other question from this lecture, please go ahead and ask. Somebody asked about note making, and in every class somebody asks about note making. So for NCERTs, I will suggest you don't need to make notes. If you find any concept that you thought was maybe something you did not know, for example, positive and negative secularism, maybe you can write it in your own words, but that's it. You're going to read advanced books, everything is written there. Once you transition to advanced books and you have read them at least twice, until then, do not start making notes. You'll be only writing so much without any use of it. It is not going to have any use. Okay, so I hope there are no questions. I repeat, you have to write in the comment section, what is the meaning of principled distance in secularism? That's it for today's session. The Telegram channel link you will find in the description box below. So that's it for today's session. I really hope you enjoyed the lecture and I'll see you tomorrow again at 6 p.m. sharp. Until then, take care.